What if atoms had choices? What if atoms had choices? Just what if they did? It's a good metaphor for us to think about will. And the reason is because, if I choose a number between 1 and 10, that can be random to you, depending on what you know about me. And this is the whole idea of the depending on what you know about me. If you know my favorite number is 7, or most people's favorite number is 7, you can, which it is, turns out. 7 is chosen a lot more. 17 is evidently chosen a lot more in 1 to 20. You can find patterns like that. But then if I know that, I can employ methods to give you a more random number. I can base the number I choose on some random event around me. But anyway, the thing is, it's very hard to tell the difference between a random choice and just a choice of someone else's. A random thing and a choice of someone else's. So what does an atom possibly do then that it can make a choice about are those things that are random. So let's take, for example, when an atom is energized, it will emit that energy at some point. But you don't know in what direction or exactly when it'll do so. And let's take the direction. Now, if an atom were to choose, let's say an atom got to choose which direction it shot its photon off in. That doesn't make a difference to the atom, because if the atom, shoots a photon in this direction, the atom will move in that direction, like rocket propulsion. But what possible difference could that make to an atom? None, because it's more or less immortal. It has no feedback system. It doesn't have a brain. If it's making a choice, I'm not saying it's alive. It's obviously not biological life. I don't think it has sophisticated feedback mechanisms like you see in biological life, and I think those are necessary for biological life. So it really makes no difference to the atom where it goes. So if you watched it emit photons, they would have a random distribution. You wouldn't see any favorite numbers like 17. Now, at this point, if this were true, I don't think you'd have atoms, trying to form biological molecules. I don't think they'd have any way to know that or to conceive of that desire, right? I don't see how they could conceive of any desire. But I think if those atoms are thrown together into certain chemicals where these desires can be expressed, where suddenly emitting a photon in one direction makes a certain arm of a molecule swing around and undergo some sort of a reaction. As soon as there starts to be this feedback, then there can start to be, or conceivably could be, conceptions. And the choices could start to make the kinds of difference that we know, choices on the macroscopic scale. And so the question of is there human will is really this idea of, does human will make a difference? Are we choosing things like, something that otherwise seems random? And, I don't know, but since I see will on the macroscopic level and I seek to break it down to its pieces, I think that we have will. The individual cells in our body have will, and that there's some element of choice is going to be found in the non-biological matter, because it has to come from somewhere. So, it could just be that randomness is equivalent to choice. It could be that we have an influence. It could be that there's a space where it's determined, and the will is deterministic. But we would still call this will, and I think, it's an interesting speculative idea that, what if, atoms are making choices, but they have no reason to make one choice over the other, so their choices are entirely random. And as they develop into more complex chemicals where there are ramifications and reasons and feedback loops that they can use to track all of this, then suddenly it makes a difference where you emit your photon, and suddenly there'd be a way and a reason to use that intentionality. So, just food for thought. Cheers.